How are international treaties transformed into domestic statutory law? Imagine a world where agreements between countries seamlessly influence the laws within each nation. This process is essential for ensuring that international commitments are effectively integrated into a country's legal system. When countries enter into international treaties, these agreements are not automatically part of the domestic legal framework. Instead, they requiring a formal process to become enforceable laws within the country. The transformation begins with the negotiation and signing of a treaty by representatives of the countries involved. Once signed, the treaty often undergoes a ratification process. Ratification is a formal approval by the country's highest authority, typically the head of state or government, depending on the constitutional structure. This step signifies the country's consent to be bound by the treaty's terms and is usually preceded by domestic approval procedures. In countries with a parliamentary system, ratification often requires the approval of the legislative body, such as a parliament or Congress. The treaty is presented to the legislative chamber, which debates its provisions and votes to approve or reject it. If approved, the treaty moves forward to the executive branch for ratification. In presidential systems, the president or head of state may have the authority to ratify treaties directly, sometimes with the advice or approval of the legislative body. Once ratified, the treaty becomes an international obligation. However, to have legal effect within the country's own legal system, the treaty must be incorporated into domestic law through a process called legislative implementation. This involves passing specific laws or statutes that explicitly incorporate the treaty's provisions. These laws clarify how the treaty's obligations are to be applied and enforced domestically. In some legal systems, especially those following a dualist approach, international treaties do not automatically become part of domestic law upon ratification. Instead, they requiring an act of legislation to give them effect. This legislation may take the form of a new law or amendments to existing laws, aligning national statutes with treaty obligations. In contrast, countries following a monist approach consider international treaties as automatically part of domestic law once ratified, without the need for additional legislation. Nonetheless, even in monist systems, implementing laws are often enacted to specify procedures and enforcement mechanisms. In summary, transforming international treaties into domestic statutory law involves a sequence of steps: negotiation, signing, ratification by the country's highest authority, and legislative implementation through domestic laws or statutes. This process ensures that international commitments are effectively integrated into a nation's legal fabric, allowing for consistent application and enforcement within the country's jurisdiction.